Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. This is the 2 p.m. news show. I am Beth and I'm here to take you through all the latest Manchester United news. And on today's show, massive, huge updates on the managerial position at Manchester United. It seems as if there's quite a few different sources that have some information on the future of the manager position at Manchester United. Who is it going to be? To me, it looks like Tuchel is leading the race. I think INEOS really like Tuchel. I think he is favourite to be Manchester United manager. So let me know your thoughts on that. Zerbi entered the race as well. He wants to move to the Premier League, linked to Man City, Manchester United and Spurs. Can we finally kiss goodbye to the Pochettino links, as it looks like he is in frame to be Spurs manager as well? I mean, there's going to be a lot of managerial positions open in the summer, but there's some big hints on Carrick's future from some really good sources as well. You've got Fabrizio Romano, you've got Ben Jacobs, you've got Mike McGrath. So some big hints on Carrick's future. Some Ancelotti links coming in there as well, but Tuchel being the main one that keeps coming out. We're going to get into it. I've got a poll running straight away. Who would you want to be the Manchester United manager in the summer? Look, it might be none of these names. This is a news show. We're going off the news. But Carrick, Zerbi and Tuchel so far are very much linked to the Manchester United job. Very much, I think, high up on that list to be the Manchester United full-time manager. Who would you want out of them three candidates? But don't sleep on Ancelotti. Ancelotti wouldn't be my top choice. I think he's one of the best managers I've seen in my lifetime. But he wouldn't be my top choice. But don't sleep on it. Apparently Manchester United want a big name. There's also some stuff coming out about Benjamin Sesko as well. Lammens giving him a lot of praise. Should he start in the Everton game? But yeah, let's get into the Manchester United news. Let's talk about it. Get your comments in. Get interactive. Get involved in the poll. And yeah, let's make it a community show. So let's get started. Let's get started, shall we? So the first thing I wanted to touch upon, and there's a lot to bring into today's show from multiple sources about the manager situation, is United doing very, very well on the pitch. I know the West Ham result was a bit of a blow. It was really frustrating to drop points, like super frustrating. But so far, if you look at the unbeaten run that we're on, we're doing quite well on the pitch. And Carrick has had a lot of plaudits. I think that West Ham was a tough test. I think that was a tough test for him, and I do think there's a lot of learning curves to take out of that from Michael Carrick. Should Sesko have come on earlier? Should he have even started in hindsight? They're big questions. How do we go against a low block? But ultimately, he's doing quite well, and he is still unbeaten as a Manchester United manager. However, the hierarchy is still staying pretty frosty on who is going to get the full-time managerial job. And it seems like at the moment they are briefing out there that Michael Carrick isn't top of the list. Like, they are not going to make a quick emotional decision. I think the hierarchy, and I think INEOS want to make it very, very clear, they are not Ed Woodward. They are not going to jump and do the same thing again. I think Michael Carrick is definitely among the contenders. I think he's going to be in the list come the end of the season. But I don't think they are just sat there at this moment in time, sitting back and saying, it's great, this unbeaten run, isn't it? Going to save us quite a lot of money in the summer, this. Just let's keep going. Let's not even bother speaking to Tuchel. Let's not even bother looking at the likes of Ancelotti, Enrique, Zerbi. Yeah, we've got it fine with Carrick here. I don't think they're doing that. I know that they've made a lot of decisions that have been questionable and have been wrong during the period of being at Manchester United and being involved in the footballing side of things. Absolutely. There's so many wrong decisions that we spoke about on the show. Amorim, Ten Hag, Dan Ashworth. I mean, you could go on and on and on. But this is going to be absolutely pivotal for INEOS' future at this football club. I do believe that, the managerial appointment. And I think that they will be doing interviews and they will be talking to other managers from now until the end of the season. I mean, Gary Neville clearly has big links into INEOS, big links into the Sir Jim Ratcliffe side of things. He did that interview with him. And he said on his podcast that he knows that Manchester United are already looking at managerial candidates. And look, they might go through the managerial candidates and they might make the wrong decision. I mean, if the track record shows, it shows we've not made the right decision so far under their time at Manchester United. I mean, before that, I mean, even like Manchester United ownership haven't made the right decisions in a very long time. However, I do believe that they will put a list of managers together. I do believe that they'll go and interview candidates. I mean, they did it when Ten Hag was going to lose his job. They were going to sack Ten Hag after the FA Cup final, but fan pressure. They went and spoke to Tuchel. They went and spoke to Zerbi. They spoke to, I think, Kieran McKenna at the time. They were pretty much on the side of we're going to sack Ten Hag, but but fan pressure after he won the FA Cup final, they ended up keeping him. So they might go through the thorough process. They might go and interview a Tuchel. They might go and interview an Ancelotti. They might go and interview an Enrique. They might go and interview, top managerial candidates, and they might decide to keep Carrick, and that might end up going really well for them, or it might end up not doing. They might decide to go for a manager like Zerbi that a lot of people are on the fence about, and he's a proper wild card, and quite a few Manchester United fans would have concerns about. They might decide to go for an Oliver Glasner that I think even more United fans will have concerns about. They definitely, they're in a situation where this is huge and they could make the wrong decision, but I don't think they'll just sit back and give the job to Carrick if he continues doing well till the end of the season. Carrick might get the job, but I do think they will talk to other managers and they'll put a list together. Let's hope they get it right. Carrick might be the right guy. We don't know. He might be the right guy. Get in the comments, do you think he's the right guy? Tuchel might be the right guy. I have strong belief that we should do everything to go and get Enrique. Other people might not agree with that. Other people might think Enrique is going to need a load of money to make it work, and we just don't have that. There's multiple different routes Man United can go down, and I think right now it is quite open. But it's a huge, huge decision on whatever they decide to do, and they will speak to other managers. I do believe that, and that's what's coming out now. They don't want to put any message out there that Carrick seems to be in favour of getting the job as of now, because this is what's coming out from Rob Dorsett of Sky Sports. He said, the club's hierarchy will not accelerate their plans for a new permanent head coach based on Carrick's short-term success. They are committed to a calm, considered and strategic process with no decision expected until the end of the season. Carrick is not currently the favourite for the long-term role. So massively playing down the Carrick permanent head coach rumours. And that feels to me like a very strong source or brief coming from within that side of things at Manchester United. That's how it feels. Rob Dorsett is a very good reporter. He's got stuff right in the past, and I think that looks like a very well-sourced piece of information that is put forward. So it's interesting. I mean, is the board right to be cautious, or, are we repeating past mistakes of being scared to reward success? Carrick has done very, very well so far. I think it's way too early to make any sort of decision on Michael Carrick. Way too early. I think let's see where we are at the end of the season. And I said this when Carrick did well against City. I said it when he did well against Arsenal. Look, a lot of people could have come in after Ruben Amorim and impressed and done a really good job. Carrick, I think so far, has done a really good job. And I'm not super mad about dropping points against West Ham. I'm gutted, I'm frustrated, I think it's a learning curve. But altogether, if you look at what he's done from when he's come in until now, we'd be very happy with 13 out of 15 points. And I think on a different day, West Ham could have won, and a different day Manchester United could have won. But on a different day, you go away from that game and you learn from it and you think, we need a deeper squad to compete with 2 games a week. We need to work out a plan to get through low blocks. And West Ham ultimately played prime Jose Mourinho ball and are fighting for their lives, and Nuno set them up in an excellent defensive structure. I mean, they were excellent defensively. But look, Carrick's done well, but I'll stay true to my point that I've said from the start, and I'll stay true to it to the end of the season. If Carrick does a super good job, if he gets us Champions League football, if the results are excellent, if the performances are excellent, if the football's enjoyable, if things are going really well, he should be in the list. He should be a contender. He should be interviewed, just like other candidates should be interviewed. Tuchel should be interviewed. I mean, you could go for Nagelsmann should be interviewed. We should have a list of candidates, and Michael Carrick should enter the race as them list of candidates. Because let's be honest, if Ruben Amorim was sacked at the end of the season, would Carrick be on the agenda for the hierarchy to go and interview? I don't think he would be. But if he does well in his interim job, he puts himself in good stead, and he puts himself into that category of managers who will be interviewed for the Manchester United job. And Carrick, by doing well in his interim period, can get himself into that bracket along with the Tuchels of the world. That's where he should end up. And we should interview Carrick, interview Tuchel, interview the candidates, and whoever impresses the most, whoever fits the project the most of what we're trying to do, and can... Ultimately, the decision makers have got to come to a decision of who is best for this job. Do you trust them to do so? That's a different story. But he should enter that conversation, but it doesn't mean he should automatically get the job. Keep voting in that poll, by the way. I'm going to be really interested to see what you guys say on that. That, of course, that isn't all the the candidates that are in the race for the Manchester United job, but they're 3 strong contenders at this moment in time. I do also think, if he gets Champions League football, that doesn't automatically mean that Carrick should get the job. I think this squad was always capable of Champions League football. I think for him to get us Champions League football, considering the fixtures we had and the position that we're in, it'd be a really good job well done. But I think it depends in the manner of which we get Champions League football. What are the results like? What are the performances like? There's lots of contributing factors which would say whether Carrick should be in the race to get this permanent job for Manchester United and whether he should be a strong contender to get the job as well. I also don't believe quickly in the comparisons to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think they're 2 completely different people, 2 different coaches. And if you're going to assess Carrick from his time in Manchester United and assess him in terms of a manager and how well he does in his interview for the full-time job, if he is interviewed for that eventually. Also, Rob Dorsett went on to say if Carrick manages to guide United to Champions League qualification, he could emerge as a strong contender, though this also might draw interest from bigger name elite managers like Thomas Tuchel or Carlo Ancelotti, increasing the competition. And there's been a lot of talk about Manchester United wanting an elite manager that can withstand the pressure of a Manchester United job. That's where the names like Thomas Tuchel and Carlo Ancelotti keep rising to the top. They keep coming up. Zerbi keeps coming up as well, but Tuchel and Ancelotti, specifically Tuchel, I mean, my own opinion, just basing off the news, by the way, Tuchel wouldn't be my first choice. But my own opinion, I've been doing United Stand shows for a long time now, and when you follow the news, you start to see a pattern. My own opinion is that Thomas Tuchel is the favourite to be the Manchester United manager in the summer. I think they wanted him when they were about to sack Ten Hag, but they didn't go for it. I think Thomas Tuchel's always had that link to Manchester United, and I think they really like him. Ben Jacobs has been on the show, and we'll have him on Thursday, so I'm going to press him a little bit more about it. And he's talked about how Tuchel likes to work in a structure that INEOS have in place. He doesn't want to be in charge of any decisions apart from the footballing side of things, and people have often had misconceptions about his fallouts at previous clubs, and he'd be willing to work in an INEOS type model. They've spoken to him before. I see Tuchel being a really strong contender for the Man United job. And a lot of people say, Beth, why would you not want Thomas Tuchel? Because a lot of people I know want Thomas Tuchel. Let me just get my opinion straight on Thomas Tuchel, right? I think as a personality, he's fantastic. I still remember the handshake with Antonio Conte on the sidelines when it was Chelsea versus Spurs. Box office. I love that from my manager. I think his personality is absolutely fantastic and is the exact type of personality Manchester United need. I'm just not sold on his football. I don't think his football is super exciting. I don't know if his football is something that I'd want to watch every week as a Manchester United fan. Based on evidence, I'm not completely sold on his football. And also the thought of him going to a back 3 absolutely scares the life out of me, because I've just got PTSD from Ruben Amorim. And I know Thomas Tuchel's played multiple different types of formations within his career, and it's not as if he's absolutely married to the 3 at the back system, but he's liked that 3 at the back system throughout his career, and it scares me. It really does. I like Tuchel, but he doesn't tick every single box for me, personally. And I think this manager, nothing's going to be absolutely perfect. Any manager that Manchester United employ in the summer, whether it be Carrick, whether it be Iraola, whether it be Pochettino, whether it be Zerbi, whether it be Tuchel, whether it be even Luis Enrique, every single manager has pros and cons. Some managers have way more pros and cons, but every manager will have one slight little niggling doubt in the back of your head, because it needs to be right. Even with Enrique, who for me would be the absolute top candidate who I would want, I don't think INEOS will do it though, because I don't think they'll want a manager who demands that much control. But with Enrique, I think the niggling doubt in the back of your mind is, can he play the football that he wants to? Can he get the success that he is capable of with the amount of money he's going to be given and the squad that he's currently got? That'd be the niggling doubt. Every manager's got a slight niggling doubt, so it's just who's the most likely to work out, who's the biggest chance of success, and that's what we've got to look at as Manchester United fans. But yeah, Tuchel is definitely, I think, up there as a leading candidate, and I wouldn't sleep on Ancelotti as well. I think Ancelotti is, I don't know if Ancelotti would want the job, but I think INEOS would like the idea of being able to bring in an Ancelotti name and a figure like that. And if they're going for the proven elite winner, Ancelotti is a proven elite winner. But I don't know if Ancelotti would even want the job. I don't think he'd want to walk into the situation that is at Manchester United. We have got some really good players and players with a lot of potential. But I think at this point in Ancelotti's career, he's the Real Madrid, I've got a team of Galacticos type manager. I'm the Don and I'm here to win. I don't think he's coming in to rebuild a Manchester United side and take us. I think Ancelotti's the type of manager where you're ready to go and win a Champions League, when you're ready to go and compete with Pep Guardiola for the league. I don't think he's a manager where we're probably going to need 3 years to be up there competing for a Premier League title. At this moment in his career, anyway, and do you know what? His legacy is so good now, and his reputation is elite. His CV is fantastic. Would you really want to walk into Manchester United and take on that now at his point in his career? I'm not sure. Mike McGrath has also put out a recent report on this, and he's had his say. Mike McGrath, by the way, just to kind of re-jog everyone's memory, he broke the Mbeumo news first when we were linked to Brian Mbeumo in the summer. So he's got substance and he's got credibility, Mike McGrath. He's been first on a couple big stories for Manchester United as of late, and sometimes he goes under the radar. So I definitely always listen to what Mike McGrath is saying when he speaks about Manchester United. And he has said this. He said, Michael Carrick is one of the names for the next potential Tottenham manager, among others such as Roberto De Zerbi, Maurizio Pochettino and Adoni Iraola. Michael Carrick has turned Manchester United's results around in a short period after being appointed as head coach until the end of the season. This has put himself in a great position for the Old Trafford job, but as it stands, it is until the end of the season only. Steve Holland as assistant has been an important appointment. And I think, people do sleep on that Steve Holland appointment. It's been a really good appointment for Manchester United, and it's helped Michael Carrick with getting the results that he's got. Michael Carrick obviously gets a lot of credit, but I think the backroom staff have done a good job as well. But Mike McGrath there is speaking about Carrick being in frame for the Tottenham job. Look, if United are not currently, thinking of offering Michael Carrick the permanent United job, his whole focus will be on Manchester United till the end of the season. But I wouldn't be surprised if Spurs came sniffing around. I really wouldn't be, especially with that connection to him from his playing days. I do think De Zerbi will be angling for any sort of Premier League job, whether that be City, Manchester United or Tottenham. So he could be aligned for that job. Pochettino, I know a lot of the fans want him. Iraola, to me, screams Spurs manager. It screams that that's his next step up, because don't get it twisted, right? Spurs, United. And I don't want to be disrespectful, but Manchester United is just a different kettle of fish to any other Premier League job. You have categories of Premier League jobs right now. If you're a manager, you have the bottom of the table sides. You then have that middle ground when you're talking about the likes of Crystal Palace, Brighton, Fulham, them sort of teams. Then you have, the Chelseas of the world and that sort of level of team. And then you have Manchester United. And Manchester United is just different. And when I'm talking about the Chelsea of the world, I'm talking about, Chelsea, Tottenham Hotspur, that sort of side. And Manchester United is just a different kettle of fish. So for Iraola, who's at Bournemouth, I think he's a fantastic coach. I love watching Bournemouth play football. I think he's super talented. And I think he's underrated as a manager, as a head coach. But I'd be worried if United went for him for the permanent manager job, because there is a huge step up from the likes of a Bournemouth to a Manchester United. I think the next step for Iraola is probably like a Tottenham Hotspur job, because of course there's huge pressure at Tottenham. It's a big club. It's a traditional top 6 club, but it's not as much pressure as the Manchester United job, and that's just simple facts. But it's interesting to see where things are going to go in the summer. I think Spurs will go back to Pochettino. That's my gut feeling. But who knows what will go on at Tottenham Hotspur. It's an interesting one for sure. But the thing is, I wouldn't be worried about competing with Spurs for a manager. Only if they act first. If Spurs act first, and say if our top priority is to get De Zerbi, I'm not saying it should be, but say if it is, and Spurs act first before we can act, then yeah, they'd probably go and get De Zerbi. But if De Zerbi was offered Manchester United or Tottenham Hotspur and he had to make a decision, every manager is picking Manchester United. I'm sorry, Tottenham fans, but it's just the truth. It's not really much competition. It's like when Spurs tried to go for Mbeumo in the summer. People were worried about that. I wasn't. If you're a player, you're going to pick Manchester United over Spurs. I'm sorry, but you just are. We still carry that name, that weight, where if you are successful at Manchester United, it is absolutely huge. Look, we've got into a situation where City have started to take players off us and compete with us for targets, and I think they'd be able to compete with us for a manager. You know, if you're walking into Man City, you've got a hierarchy that's going to completely back you. You've got money to spend. You've got already a successful squad with a winning mentality. You're way more likely to have success at Man City. So if Pep does decide to leave City and City are coming in for a manager that we want, I do worry about that. Because City have won titles as of late. You know, they've grown in their stature. They're not nowhere near as big as a club as Manchester United, but they have history of winning, recent history of winning. You know, they've got a hierarchy behind them that's going to back them. So they are a competitor for players and for managers. But Spurs, the hierarchy is under massive pressure and not made very good decisions. And, you know, managers have been thrown under the bus countless times. Towards the bottom of the league, they are really struggling. The fan base is frustrated. That's going to be a tough position for any manager to walk into. So I don't worry about competing with Spurs at all for a manager, but I would worry about competing with Man City if Pep does decide to move on. I think if City win the league, Pep will leave. I think if they miss out on the league, I think he'll want to stay and win the league in his final season. But let's see what happens there. But yeah, there's loads to talk about. Got some super chats coming in. Keep voting in the poll, everyone. Ross says, could see Zerbi at Spurs. Doesn't Tuchel play three at the back? Luis Enrique's playing style at PSG would suit us better with how he uses wingers. Yeah, Enrique's playing style is exactly how I'd love to see Manchester United play football. Fearless attacking football. It's fantastic to watch, but he also has ridiculously talented forward players. Look at his midfield, you know, João Neves, Vitinha, even Ruiz. Like, he's got some really top quality players in there in terms of what Enrique's got to work with at PSG. And coming into Manchester United, we have some good players for sure, but you'd need to back him. You need to back him with wingers. You need to back him with fullbacks. I mean, Nuno Mendes and Hakimi compared to, look, Dalot and Shaw have had good moments, but Hakimi and Nuno Mendes compared to Dalot and Shaw, I mean, come on. Like, fullbacks are a big part of Enrique's game. That's an area you'd have to address straight away. Some attacking fullbacks with output, wingers. I mean, we would need to spend money with Enrique, but I think the juice is worth the squeeze. Is the money worth the reward? And I think it would be. I mean, look at his track record, and the football he plays is entertaining. Like, it's enjoyable to watch. He's got stature. For me, Enrique ticks all the boxes. His football's good. He's got stature. He's still got a lot of time left in him. He is an elite manager. He can deal with pressure. I think he ticks so many boxes of what Manchester United would want in a successful manager. But I know that he would want a lot of control. Ben Jacobs told us on his previous show that he came into Chelsea and he had a lot of demands, and Chelsea didn't think he was going to suit the footballing structure of what they have. We've got an ownership that like to replicate Chelsea in a lot of ways right now with INEOS. So I don't know. I just don't think that INEOS would fancy Enrique, but I think he's the best man for the job personally. Mike Hill, we need Carrick on a 1-year contract to see how he does well, and then if we can sign him for longer. Carrick's definitely up there for me. I've said, out of all the current managerial candidates, Enrique's the only one that I'd be absolutely certain that I'd have him over Carrick no matter what. Carrick, for me, is in competition with the rest until the end of the season. If he keeps doing well, he's seriously putting himself into them conversations for sure. We've also got more updates on Zerbi and Thomas Tuchel coming in from Fabrizio Romano. So this is what Fabrizio Romano has said on both of these two managers. And currently, if I'm looking at the poll now on who you would prefer out of the three of Carrick, Zerbi and Tuchel, just waiting for them results to come in. See what them results are saying. If someone can let me know, that'd be brilliant. Here we go. So it's 43% Carrick, 42% Tuchel, and 15% Zerbi. I think the community has absolutely nailed it there. I think that you've nailed it. For me, it's hard for me to say I'd take Carrick over Tuchel because his CV obviously outshines Carrick's CV. However, I do think Carrick is a better fit. If he continues the way he is from now until the end of the season, if he continues how he is, and people will laugh at that, but I just don't fancy Thomas Tuchel at United. I just don't know what it is. if we got him, I'd back him and I'd want him to do well. Like I said, I rate his personality. But that's how I'd rank it. Out of them three managers, I'd go Carrick, Tuchel, Zerbi currently in order. And I think it would be a big landslide away from Zerbi. Buck fully says Zerbi, good grief, it was Brighton's structure that brought them results. Their scouting was excellent. It's interesting because, you know, Brighton's scouting has always, you know, had huge credit and huge plaudits and been a big reason why managers have been able to be successful. But then, you know, they're going under a little bit of a tough time at the moment, aren't they, Brighton? It's interesting, the peaks and troughs that they've had, but their footballing structure is excellent, and that always is going to help in terms of transitioning and building a good team that is able to compete in the Premier League. It's like at Brentford. Thomas Frank got a lot of credit for what he did at Brentford, and I still think Thomas Frank's a better manager than what we've seen at Spurs. I never wanted him at United. I don't think he was ready for that level. However, I do think, you know, Spurs swallows managers up. They've swallowed all types of managers up. I think he was better than what Spurs showed him to be. However, if you look at their sporting structure, it's brilliant. Keith Andrews has come in and he's doing an even better job. So Frank got a lot of credit, but I think in reality, Brentford's structure needed a lot of credit there as well. So for me, Zerbi is too much of a flight risk. He's absolutely too much of a flight risk. It's one of them where it could either be absolutely amazing or it could just be an absolute disaster. And I think it's more likely to be a disaster with the setup that Manchester United has. It's too much of a risk. So this is what Fabrizio Romano has said. He said, on Zerbi, he's always been one of the names under consideration at Manchester United since the summer. Roberto De Zerbi could open doors to a Premier League return, according to my information. But at this moment with Manchester United, there is nothing guaranteed, and Manchester United are very happy with what Michael Carrick is doing. So Carrick's still in frame, he's still a contender, but we know Tuchel and De Zerbi are two names that keep coming up for United. They were both spoken to before Amram came in, when Ten Hag nearly went in that summer, and they both got links to INEOS already and the people who will be making them decisions. So don't count De Zerbi out. He's a free agent now, so it'd be easy to move for him. It would absolutely be easy to go for him, a lot easier to go for him than Tuchel. But I just think it's too much of a risk to go for him in Manchester United in the position that we're in. I really do. I'm going to be honest, I'd be disappointed if De Zerbi was the one we went for. I could see De Zerbi going to City. And do you know, it's mad saying I'd be disappointed in Manchester United going for a potential future City manager, because City do tend to get a lot of their decisions right and have had mass amounts of success through their footballing structure over, the last 10 years. However, I just see him as a Pep sort of disciple. Pep raves about him. I think at Man City he'd be given the money to be able to get in the players he'd want to play his sort of very risky football, you know, everything but the kitchen sink. And I think I could see that. I could see him being a Pep successor, but let's see what happens. Romano said on Thomas Tuchel as well, Thomas Tuchel is fully focused on England for the World Cup and he's not going to entertain any sort of conversation before the World Cup. This is going to make the market very interesting. And to that I say, of course, that's what his camp's going to put out there. Look, Fabrizio is a very good journalist, one of the top tier journalists. However, what is the best interest of Thomas Tuchel going into this World Cup? He does not want it out there. If he even was having conversations with United, that is got any other focus other than England. If Man United and Thomas Tuchel have conversations, I think it's of best interest of both parties to keep that very, very quiet. As much as I think from Tuchel's camp, this will definitely be the message that's being pushed out. Fully focused on England, and if you do talk to me, it'd have to be after the World Cup. But let's be honest, if United are getting a permanent manager in the summer, I mean, there is no way we are waiting until potentially late July to talk to Thomas Tuchel if he's going to be the long-term Man United job. There's no way we're going to sit there and let other potential managerial candidates go to other clubs, because there is a big manager market this summer, and say, do you know what, we're sitting and waiting to see if Tuchel's all right for the job. You know, other candidates that are in the list, you know, Carrick, you are in frame, but if Spurs is offering you the job, we can't guarantee you. We want to speak to Tuchel first. So, yeah, you go to Spurs. De Zerbi, yeah, that's fine. Go to Man City. Enrique, yeah, we're not even going to bother talking to him. Areola, no, yeah, if you want the Spurs job, yeah, go there. We're going to wait until Thomas Tuchel's ready to have a conversation with us in mid-July. When we're getting players in and we're trying to attract players in this transfer window, we're just going to tell them, don't matter who the manager is, you should join us anyway. There is no way that Manchester United are going to wait until after the World Cup to make a decision on their manager. And if they do, that would be a huge mistake, in my opinion. You've got to get the manager sorted early doors. And even if it doesn't go public, keep it quiet. Even if your plan is to go and get Tuchel, you talk to him before the World Cup starts. You're talking to him now. And you go and make that decision at the start of the summer. And if you decide it is Tuchel you want, you keep it quiet all the way up until after the World Cup. But there will absolutely be conversations beforehand if Tuchel is going to be the guy that they go for. So I don't believe that United will wait until after the World Cup to make decisions on managers. I don't believe it. I think it'd be a mistake because you want to be able to talk to players. Current players want to know the future. Bruno Fernandes has a huge decision to make this summer. Is he going to leave Manchester United? Is he going to stay? He's not made a decision on his future yet. If you want your captain, your best performing player, who's had an incredible season, he's up there for one of the best players in the league this year, to stay at the football club playing as a creative number 10, and as your captain, you're going to want to be able to tell him who the manager is and what the future is. So with Tuchel, if you did have to wait until the World Cup, if it was 100% true that Tuchel was like, I am not speaking to anyone about a managerial appointment until after the World Cup, to me that rules him out completely. And if it is Tuchel, you've got to get it sorted before the World Cup, and you've got to have them conversations before the World Cup for the best interest of Manchester United moving forward. But yeah, also coming out from the Daily Star as well, via the MEN, a lot of stuff on Tuchel this morning. Thomas Tuchel is emerging as the preferred choice of Manchester United to become the club's next permanent manager. I did say, didn't I? I think he's their top candidate. And I think they'll be having conversations with him around about now. Just conversations we don't know about. Because realistically, Tuchel's, he's in the audience watching Manchester United yesterday, scouting out Kobbie Mainoo, potentially, Jared Bowen, Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire. He's there watching the game. But Thomas Tuchel right now, he's preparing for the World Cup. But I have a lot of time. When you're an international head coach right now, there's a lot of time that you have where you are free to go and speak to the Manchester United hierarchy. So wouldn't surprise me at all if Tuchel's having conversations right now with Manchester United and INEOS, the people who are making the footballing decisions. But he goes on to say Tuchel might be in pole position because of the circumstances out of his control as much as his managerial abilities. Luis Enrique is expected to sign a contract extension with PSG. Ratcliffe and co appear to want a superstar name, a manager with proven history of success, someone who will set tongues wagging and start egos throbbing, a coach who can challenge for the Premier League and Champions League titles. Look, don't run before you can walk. However, that's what we all want. We want to compete for Premier Leagues. We want to compete for Champions Leagues. We want to have hunger, aggression to go and make that happen as soon as possible. Doesn't always mean that an elite superstar name is going to make that happen. It doesn't always mean that they are the right choice. You've got to get the person who's right for the job. And we've got to consider all options here. But briefs and reports currently, all routes lead to Thomas Tuchel being a very big standout candidate. And it feels like we're being put off that Enrique sent. A lot of reports coming out about him extending at PSG. Ben Jacobs has shut it down in our show numerous times about Enrique being a top candidate. No one's reporting him as a top candidate for Manchester United. So, yeah, that's where I'm sort of at the moment. I do think De Zerbi's football, his suicide ball, is too risky for Manchester United. I think it could work at the likes of a Man City. I think he could do really well there. He's got that potential. I just think at United he's too much of a risk for what we need now. But it's going to be interesting, City might be looking for a manager depending on Pep's future. Spurs, like I said, they don't really worry me too much. Liverpool could be in the market for a manager. I think they absolutely could be. There's a lot of moving parts going into this summer for Manchester United. Just got some super chats coming in as well, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about Benjamin Sesko. We have Keel Robinson saying, pick a winner, Tuchel. Tuchel is a winner. He is a winner. And I know this is so picky from a club that hasn't won as much as they should be doing in recent times and has suffered a lot. He doesn't win in the way that excites me. And I know that sounds really picky. He is a winner and I understand the argument for Tuchel, but like I said, he's just not my flavour of tea that I would be moving towards right now. NOS Gaming says, against top teams, we're in fight mode and sharpen our swords. Against mid-table teams, we often assume an easy win, signalling complacency. To become great, this must end. I don't know if it's the fact we're complacent. I think it's the way that teams set up against us, that calibre of club set up against us. West Ham set up very differently than Man City, Arsenal, even Fulham, Spurs even at the beginning of the game. And even with Spurs, we were creating a lot of chances, but the first goal that got us going was from a set piece, and a set piece would have opened things up and changed the game against West Ham, because they would have had to change their game plan a little bit, or they might have stuck with their game plan, but they might have opened up more in like the last 10 minutes or so. So I think it's the way these teams set up against us, to be honest with you, and we need to find a way to deal with a low block. I spoke about it a little bit last night, and I've spoken about it multiple times now. We need to get more crosses in the box. We need our fullbacks to contribute more with crosses into the box. We need a presence in the box. And I think Carrick got so invested in the team that has been winning and doing really well for him. I can completely understand why. Most people thought it should have been an unchanged 11 yesterday, that we might have maybe just neglected the bigger picture in the fact of the way that West Ham were going to approach us. I do think Sesko probably would have been more suited to that game as a target man in the middle of the box for us, and someone to aim towards and a way to break down a low block. But I don't blame Carrick for that, because the current setup was doing super well. So I think it's a learning curve for sure, and I think we will learn from that against Everton. And I'm not saying if Sesko started we would have won. Who knows what would have happened. But I think it would have given us a better chance to break down their low block. Daniel Thompson says, hope you're well, Beth and the United stand. Over everything in their tenure, this is INEOS' biggest test yet, and no room for error, as they have to get the right person. We need the very best and no shortcuts. Enrique for me. Absolutely spot on, Daniel. I completely agree with that. It's a huge test. And look, I wouldn't want to be making that decision. I mean, I sort of would, because, so many people disagree with this, but I would trust myself over, decisions that they've made over their time so far. But I'm hoping they've learnt from them decisions, and that is massively glass half full. That is massively optimistic. But I'm hoping they've learnt from the Amram appointment, the Ten Hag situation, the Dan Ashworth debacle. And this is one of the most important decisions we will make in our current history as Manchester United Football Club. It's a huge sliding doors moment. It's a huge pivotal moment on where this club is heading towards, this managerial appointment in the summer. I think it really is. And they've got to get it right. And they've got to. And I don't think I'd want to be making that decision, because there's so many options. And it's going to be interesting for sure. It's going to be interesting. Just on the options quickly, Ben Jacobs has said Mauricio Pochettino is open to returning to Tottenham Hotspur. Poch has been linked to us for years. He was linked to us when Ten Hag got the job. He was linked to us before Amram got the job. He's always been linked to us. Proven Premier League manager, but he's never been one that I've been like, yes, United need to go and get Pochettino. I think Pochettino will go back to Spurs, or he's very likely to go back to Spurs. And the fact Ben Jacobs is briefing that he's open to returning to Tottenham, Pochettino probably, would like that move, a move back to the Premier League club football after he competes with the USA national team in the World Cup. So if he returns to Spurs, does that make our path to the top four next season even harder? Potentially, because he's got a proven record at Spurs of being able to deal with that crippling hierarchy, and his period of being Spurs manager was one of their most successful in recent times. But also it kills the Poch to United links, which always have lingered about, but I never thought I had too much substance in them. So let's see. And then just to kind of finish off the show, this is what Lammens had to say about Benjamin Sesko. He said, honestly, Sesko has always been like this the whole season. When we need a goal, we can always count on him. Still a bit disappointed and felt like we didn't really play the way we should have. The overall feeling is disappointing for us. Love that mentality from Lammens, elite mentality. You're disappointed, in a draw, and that's exactly how it should be. Just in terms of Benjamin Sesko has scored 4 Premier League goals in 2026, and the only player who has scored more is Cole Palmer, although 4 out of his 5 were penalties. So as much as I do think Sesko needs to work on his overall game, you know, he probably should have had more goals than that as well. He's missed a few good chances. Like, he should have scored in the last game against Spurs. Like, he really should have. He's had some good opportunities that he's missed. So he's getting into situations, he's getting opportunities, he's finding opportunities, and I think he's starting to find his feet a little bit. That finish yesterday against West Ham was excellent. Proper got us out of jail there. It was a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant finish, and it showed that he's got a bit in his locker. He's got a striker's instinct. He's got a good finish in him. I think he's got a lot to work on. I think he's absolutely a work in progress, but there's something there to work with Benjamin Sesko. So I'm excited to see a little bit more from him, and I would start him against Everton. I would. I think he deserves it after, you know, the contributions that he's made to the team. So let's see what happens. We've got a lot of time to discuss the Everton game. There's a lot of time before Manchester United play football again. So positive to take from that game was Benjamin Sesko and Leno Yoro for me. But look, everyone, thank you so much for getting involved. Let me know in the comments, who do you think's most likely to be in the dugout for Manchester United at the end of the season? Or I should say, it was Carrick at the end of the season, at the start of next season. What do you think Carrick needs to do to be considered for the full-time job? Where does Carrick rank within other contenders? Zerbi, Ancelotti, Tuchel, Iraola, other names that Manchester United has been linked to. And also remember, we've got some banging games on That's Football coming up. We have tonight, Sunderland versus Liverpool, 8:15 kickoff. As United rival watch, you want to be there on That's Football watching that, because we need Sunderland to do us a favour at the Stadium of Light. They've been brilliant at home all season. I would like them to beat Liverpool, because us dropping points against West Ham, it just opens up that gap for Liverpool a little bit to try and, you know, close that gap on us and get closer to us. So it's very close and it's very tight in them Champions League spaces. You don't take anything for granted. And ideally, we need Liverpool to drop points tonight. And then tomorrow, title race, Arsenal away at Brentford, which is another really difficult place to go. It's getting tighter at the top of the table with Man City as well. So that'll be a good one to keep an eye on. And then tomorrow, here on the United Stand, as ever, we will be joined by football journalist Ben Jacobs from 2 p.m. I'm going to be asking him all about them links to Thomas Tuchel. I'm going to get the breakdown on Zerbi leaving Marseille and what his preference is coming back into the Premier League. I'm going to be having a thorough discussion with Ben Jacobs around all things Manchester United. You do not want to miss it tomorrow at 2 p.m. But look, everyone, for now, have an amazing Wednesday. Smash a like on the video. Thank you to all the super chats. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for getting involved, and I will see you on the next one.